Everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am Adorkable Rachel, and it's time for another episode of Rachel Reviews, so let's just hop into it. Avengers Infinity War! Part 1, apparently. This has got to be one of the most anticipated films of the year, and I would even argue that it's the most anticipated Marvel Cinematic Universe film in a really long time. And just so you guys know, this is going to be a spoiler-free review, so if you haven't seen it yet, then you're fine. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to give away any specific important plot details. This is just me and my immediate reaction and my thoughts to the film right after seeing it. And before we get into the review, this episode is brought to you by Stardust. Stardust is a free app that you can download onto your phone, link is in the description down below, and it's the easiest way to post reactions to movies and TV shows and trailers on social media. Whenever I go see a new movie, I always post my immediate reaction on this app, so that's the best way to see my first thoughts on the film before I even review it. And it's not just new stuff, because there are literally thousands of things that you can react to on this app. And if you download the app, you can post your own reactions, watch other reactors, and if you tag me in one of your reactions, you might get a chance to appear in my next video. Stay tuned until the end of this episode to see if your reaction made it into the review. Alright, so now let's talk about the Avengers 3. Even Avenging, I don't know. Avengers Infinity War. The movie is the 19th in the Marvel Cinematic Universe series. It's the third of the Avengers films, as I mentioned previously, and it stars a lot of people in this franchise. In fact, it stars pretty much everyone that's still alive in the series except for Hawkeye, Valkyrie, Ant-Man, and pretty much anyone that's appeared in any of the TV series. In the movie, the great villain Thanos has finally shown up to collect all the Infinity Stones so he can control the universe and destroy half of its population. Of course, the Avengers start to inform each other about this, and slowly but surely they all start to recruit each other to stop him, fight back, and save the universe before he can get all the stones. And apparently, even though these stones make up the elements of the universe, they all exist really close to each other and within our galaxy, and even relatively close to Earth. I just ruined that for you. So I think one of the really big questions that people had for this movie leading up to the release of it was, despite there being a really big cast, seriously, there's like 70 main characters apparently, which is crazy, is this movie still watchable and is it easy to follow? Yes, I'd say yes, for the most part. And one of my personal biggest complaints with movies like this where we have a huge ensemble cast is that normally we don't always get to know everyone or fledge out the characters properly, but I actually didn't really find that to be the case here. If you've never seen an MCU film, or if you haven't really been watching a lot of the movies, then it's a little unlikely that you're gonna get super involved with this movie. But I also think that with a movie of this magnitude that has so much history, I think it's kind of expected that most of the audience is gonna be somewhat familiar with this universe at least. We're not gonna spend a lot of time reintroducing the characters. I mean, if we did that, we'd be here for like 3 hours and no one wants that. But in contrast, I still do find that we spend a decent amount of time with each character so that we do get a good idea of their personalities as well as the newfound chemistry that they share. So I think it worked fine. I mean, we don't get as much screen time with everyone, but for the most part we do, so I'm okay with it. At the very beginning of the film, we're introduced to Thanos, and right away we can see how destructive he is and how much power he possesses, and I was a little worried that he wasn't gonna be that awesome of a villain, because Marvel does have a little bit of that kind of streak in the past, but I was pleasantly surprised. He's not only a good MCU villain, he's a great MCU villain. They've been building up his character literally since 2011, I think, and I gotta say, I think it was worth the payoff. Not only is he evil and powerful, but he's actually complex and has some intense and emotional moments, and he actually has purpose. He's not just some random bad guy for the heroes to beat, he has history and he has a reason for what he's doing, and he actually believes that what he's doing is the best thing for the universe. And he actually has logic to back up his motivation. And not to mention, the CGI on Thanos was actually really good. I'm not usually a huge fan of CGI characters showing up in live action movies, but not only is Josh Brolin's performance just fantastic, fantastic, but also just the expressions and the tics on his face, it makes him look even more real. Of course, the computer graphics are noticeable in a couple of moments, but I was pretty forgiving because I was just so lost in this character and I really enjoyed the performance. And I'm not gonna go too far into it because this review can only be so long, but the CGI in the rest of the movie is actually really gorgeous. Oh, by the way, remember how I mentioned that Thanos was introduced in the very first scene? Well, not gonna give away anything, but trust me when I say that it is really dark. I mean, it went in a direction that I was not expecting, so, yeah, I might be just a little bit traumatized about that. Might take me a few days. And of course from there we get reintroduced to the Avengers, and it's great to see them all come together again in one movie and to have a reason to come back together again. And this time the stakes are insanely high because they don't just have to save the world, they have to save the universe. That's a lot of responsibility, guys. So all these characters, they start meeting each other, and then they start quipping with each other, and then they start fighting together, and as you'd expect, this movie once again does a really good job of giving the audience what it wants. We want to see these characters who have never shared films before come together and finally interact and fight side by side, and it's actually really entertaining and even rewarding to see. This kind of thing has been building up for 10 years. And it's awesome! And of course, with it being a Marvel film, there is some good comedy and there is quite a bit of physical humor in the right moments, as well as a lot of bickering amongst the cast, the one-liners that feel like they come from a comic book but handled in a serious enough manner that we readily accept them here. All for the sake of comedy, of course, but sometimes it's the straight tone that really gets a laugh out of the audience. My personal favorite first meeting is when Thor and Peter Quill / Star-Lord finally start talking to each other, and all I can say is that it is a bit of a dick-wagging contest. And that's exactly what I wanted with these two when they started talking, so that made me really happy. So even though this movie does kind of start off dramatic and it doesn't really start off with a big battle or anything, it actually doesn't take too long to get to an action sequence, and I greatly appreciate that. You know what you are, movie, you know your character, you know your development, and you know your action. You don't take too long to get to the action, but you also know that we don't need to start with it, and good, that was good. I didn't really feel like there was a battle sequence that felt unnecessary or went on too long. They were fun, and I'm really glad that those action sequences were a lot of fun because there is actually a lot of talking in this movie, and I know you're to kind of expect that, especially when this movie has so many characters and there's a lot of new meetings and interactions, but still, there were a couple of scenes that I felt like could have maybe ended a little sooner. In particular, I felt like the meeting of Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy was like, come on guys, can we move along here? Also, I normally love Bradley Cooper and I especially love his performance of Rocket, but am I the only one that noticed his dialogue didn't seem to really gel too well with the rest of the conversation? Almost like his lines were maybe recorded separately from everyone else? Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how it felt when I was watching this movie, and it was a little distracting. And something unique about this Avengers film is that we actually never get to a point where all of the characters do come together. Like I mentioned before, we do see groups in different locations, and sometimes the groups get bigger with more people becoming a part of it, but we never do actually see them in one great big battle together like you might have expected from watching the trailers. So, because of this, we actually do end up jumping around a lot in the story. And this could have totally not worked, but I felt like when we were going to each of the different scenes, there wasn't really a point where I realized I stopped caring about a certain scene or about a certain group of people. I think just about everyone got the right amount of screen time and investment for us to still stick with it when we get back to that scene. Maybe they're saving a big battle with everyone involved for the next movie, I don't really know, but it would be really cool to see everyone together. I mean, for the final climax, that would be awesome. So a movie like this with a lot of characters might seem like a lot going into it, but again, I think that as an audience we do tend to be a little bit more lenient since we do want to see everyone together and we want to see everyone in a battle together and get to see everyone again. And from my observation, I also noticed that one big strength of the film is that the story is actually pretty simple and easy to follow. Thanos wants the Infinity Stones, and the Avengers have to stop him. That's it! And with all these people and all the places that you're going in the movie, that's all you need! There are of course a couple of detours, but when you really think about it, they still pertain to the plot at large and they don't really feel irrelevant. I feel like maybe besides some possible plot holes, the only real downside in this movie is that some of the scenes might drag on a little bit too long, and also we don't get as much time with certain characters. But who knows, maybe we're saving some of that for the next movie. And if you've seen this movie, I know in some ways that might seem impossible, but you know what? Never say never. Also, I noticed in the last couple of days that there have been some people online calling this movie the next Empire Strikes Back, and I don't really know if I would go that far. Mostly because, you know, again, I don't want to give away too much, but there's not really that big of a huge twist in this movie, at least not in the way that The Empire Strikes Back has. And, you know, what I think Empire Strikes Back had going for it was that that big twist completely changed everything that the main character knew to be true, and I just don't think there's anything like that in this movie. Not saying it wasn't, you know, epic, but it just really, I don't think they're quite there on the same level. I mean, yes, this movie does have a lot of emotional weight and stakes, but I don't know. That's a stretch, guys. But that's just me. Only time will tell if it'll be seen that way. Avengers Infinity War is a movie that was 10 years in the making with so much hype and build-up, and I think it was worth the wait, really. And it's only the first half of the story. And believe me when I say, this movie had enough for a whole movie, but there's still so much more to come. There's tons of action, just the right amount of comedy and drama. It's awesome to see these characters come together again. And if you're really attached to this franchise, you might actually feel yourself getting really emotional in some moments of the movie. And with this movie only being part one, it actually does end in a kind of random place. I almost don't want to call it a cliffhanger, but it kind of is. But it just kind of stops dead center, and you're just like, wait, how can that be the end? There's gotta be more. I know there's a part two, but there's more coming, right? And sometimes that is the sign of a really good movie. You just don't want it to end. You just want more. Also, it's kind of a given in these movies, but just make sure that you wait for the post-credits scene, because that's also really exciting. And one more thing I want to add is that I cannot tell you how happy I am that people have been going to see this movie, and it seems like everyone has been really enjoying it and loving it and getting really emotional about it. You know, instead of people, you know, not liking it, like half the audience not liking it. All I'm saying is I'm really relieved that we have not yet gotten into another Last Jedi situation. Thank God. So those are my thoughts on Avengers Infinity War, and now here's this week's featured Stardust user and their thoughts on the film.
The war is upon us, and Thanos the Mad Titan has arrived. I hope they remember you as much as I remember this movie, because holy crap, that movie was memorable. I decided to break my review into 4 pieces. Review number 1, the pros, and there are tons of pros. Everything you loved about the first Avengers movies, lots and lots more of that. Special effects, surround sound, the jokes, the coolness factor, just everything. I know, Iron Spider, holy crap, that was cool. Thumbnail pose.
So now I want to know, what did you guys think of this movie? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Who was your favorite character to see? What was your favorite new interaction to see? Or is it possible that there's something you really didn't like about it? Are there any big plot holes that you noticed? Also, let me know, who's your favorite Avenger? Which is your favorite MCU film? And are there any other movies or TV shows or trailers coming out soon that you want me to do a review of? Well, go ahead and leave your comments below. Be sure to like and share. And if you're new and like what you saw here, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And also be sure to hit the little bell button down there to get notified when new stuff comes out, because I make new videos every week. Bye, Adorkable Buddies. I'll see you soon.